Years ago, I remember hearing somebody tell me that forgiveness is not about the other person, but it's about you. That in forgiving, you are actually forgiving yourself and you're letting the other person go, no longer having to hold them in that fixed position that we hold people in when we haven't forgiven them. And for much of my own understanding with spirituality and healing, I felt that forgiveness was compulsory, that we couldn't heal, we couldn't move on without forgiveness. But what I didn't understand was the importance in not forgiving, at least for a period of time. Why is it that we have this interim period between forgiving somebody and holding a grudge, or seeing them as broken, or an opponent, an enemy, a bête noire? Why is it that we hold the person in that position? And why is it important that we do? And I've been thinking on this for a very long time. And how I see it is that we hold the person external to us. They become a mirror to us. They are like a foil within a movie or a story that carry oppositional characteristics to our own unique subset of characteristics. And by looking at them as something external to us, seeing them as other, we can study ourselves. We can know what is triggering us. We can better understand what we're growing into. The whole notion of forgiveness is relational, because there's a part of us, if we are holding somebody accountable, there's a part of us that is still holding a sense of victimhood, or a sense of being wronged, a sense of mistreatment, and being taken advantage of. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm not even saying that that isn't what happened. What I'm saying is, in order to reach a point of forgiveness, we have to lose that identity and change the framework of the relationship. So initially in the process of forgiving, we are surfacing something inside of ourselves. We are finally able to bear witness to something that's happened. I had a lady I was working with as a patient years ago where she had been accosted in a very violent way. And just bringing it back within her memory, just talking about it, would cause her to have seizures, something they called non-epileptic. But just talking about it would cause her whole system to shut down. And with that level of shock or trauma that people hold inside of themselves, you have to uncover it little pieces at a time initially. It doesn't have to be that way, but until you can bear witness to something and really be present with it, it can be like opening a closet that just screams at you when you open it. So that relationship is important. You open the door. In some cases, you open the door slowly and you peek in. Maybe you have a therapist, or you have a friend, or you have a partner that helps you do it. Or you have a ritual or a technique, or you develop skills like meditation or dietary things that you're doing, lifestyle changes that allows you to go in. And then you see yourself from that vantage. You see what had happened to you. And maybe you take it personally from the standpoint of seeing victimhood or mistreatment. But as you uncover it more and more, the dynamic changes, and so does the relationship. As you uncover it, you see that the person that perpetuated that crime or that sin or that trauma upon you was themselves hurting or in pain. It lends itself then to the adage of hurt people, because you would have to be unconscious or hurting to hurt another person. It is an impossibility for one to be conscious, awake, in a place of love or connection to cause harm to another person. It is impossible for someone to do that. Somebody has to be cut off inside of themselves, disconnected from their heart, disconnected from their soul, right? And then we see them from a different vantage point, and it begins to change the relationship. And then that allows us no longer to be the victim. Now we enter into this cave inside of ourselves, the cave that we fear, that holds the treasure that we seek. We enter into this cave and we have more courage. We're no longer apathetic or depressed. We're no longer a victim. We don't see the perpetrator as someone that had power in the first place. They were lost, right? But does not make it okay. So you're not condoning it. And you're unraveling and you're unraveling and you're unraveling some more. And you're changing the relationship with this individual. And through that process, you're elevating yourself. But you still haven't forgiven. You're still holding on because there's still something you're working at, something you're not done with. Like a meal that you have sitting before you, you're still working on that meal. You aren't done. There's still more lessons to pick out, which is why they become firmly affixed upon your third eye, upon your mental center. Somebody who has done a harm to you, created a trauma, you become fixated. You can't let them go. You almost focus on them more than the things you love in life, because they are standing as an obstruction to the love that is within the universe, the love that you've blockaded because you can't receive it, because you're still holding on to the pain. So you focus on them, looking at more and more angles, seeing it from different vantage points, different positions. Maybe you get into their history and you hear about their childhood, and then you find that maybe you had more in common with this person, or maybe you can see the point where they got lost, the point where they've been errant, where they have not been able to face their own trauma, their own pain, and so they've cut themselves off. What I realized for me was that I would shut down. I would shut down and protect. I would become a wallflower, cut myself off from people, which is not the same thing as creating violence. I was not yelling at people. I was not diminishing people, but I was not giving myself to the world. I was protecting myself. I was keeping the world away. I was saying, no, 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 you stay away from me. I'll give myself, but only so far. And that's the rub too. When you forgive, you open yourself to love and light. You give yourself an opportunity to flow again. But then that's two ways. You're creating a relationship with love in the world. And you can give more love because you can take in more love. Where we hold trauma, where we hold pain, we hold something that is wanting to be loved. It must be loved to transmute, to shift, to move the energy, to grow. It must be loved. But love initially is painful. It's opening up that closet with the scream, and the scream comes at you completely. With my wife and I, love is a threat. Love is a threat to the places that we fear inside. And when my wife loves me in those places, I thank her. I say, thank you for loving me in this place where I could not love myself. And she says the same thing to me. And what she says to me is, I want to love you in that place. I do love you in that place. I love you in that place. But it's receiving that love. Because when something else goes into that place, when light goes into that place, when love goes into that place, the tears come, the anger comes, the emotions come. Our first years in our relationship were at times passionate and tumultuous because she loved me in a way that was uncomfortable. But through that lens, all the anger and all the emotion, I was able to then love more and forgive more the people that had created trauma in my life, because I could see the monster inside myself. I could see the monster not as one who was yelling and attacking other people, but who was attacking myself, the inner monologue, the inner critic. I was attacking myself the same way that I was attacked, the same way that I was diminished, the same way that I was belittled. And then I would couch it and close off. I would find myself being critical of the world around me, judgmental of people, but internally. Sometimes I would gossip, but I didn't think anything of it. I would have thoughts, but I would not engage the thoughts. I didn't think anything of the thoughts. How do you know that you've forgiven? I've had people I've spoken to for years where they say, I've already forgiven. I've locked it away. It's done. It's over. I'm through. But they're not through. They're creating that relationship over and over again. They've walled it off. They've created a heart wall, a barrier, a protection. They haven't let go. It's still ruling their lives. They just haven't gone into it. Maybe you spend your whole life going into it. I don't know. With all the work I've done and all that I have to share, I'm still forgiving myself every single day and others every single day. Years ago, I thought I was enlightened. And I had a realization about enlightenment. Enlightenment is not a switch where the lights are all of a sudden on and they just remain on. It's intermittent. You pick up more and more and more of the signal. You let go of more and more and more of the pain and the trauma. And you create more and more space for your soul, for your connection with the universe, with God, with light, with love. You're creating a relationship and you're letting go of the relationship to pain. But it is intermittent. It is gradual. It is happening all the time. All the time. And today I was musing because today I got angry. But I didn't act the way that I had before. I wasn't projecting it at other people. I wasn't projecting it at myself, though for a moment I considered it. I was aware of the thoughts I was having in real time. And when you're aware of the thoughts, you can catch the tiger by the tail. You can catch that part of yourself, not to judge and be critical and attack, but to choose to love and live differently in that moment, to live differently. And it's when you live differently, when your pattern changes, that something else can happen. You create new possibilities. Every time you create some new pattern or new response, you're creating a new pathway. And when you create that new pathway initially, it's probably going to be messy. But it doesn't have to be clean to create a pathway. If we're walking out in nature, right? If we're walking out in nature, the path is not initially paved. Someone has to walk the path. Walk the path enough, and the path becomes paved. And then others can walk it too. This is what the masters do. This is what the great teachers do. They form pathways by loving in places that have been a challenge for us to love in, and then they show the way to love. Show the way to love. And that's the path to become a great parent, a great teacher, but that's beside the point, because you become responsible and accountable to yourself, and you become capable of receiving love and giving love. And it happens gradually, not by forgiving somebody as a blanket statement and then suppressing yourself and saying, it's locked in the vault. I forgave them. I told them I forgave them. Yes, but what about that moment where you feel enraged and you feel justified with your rage? Or that moment where all of a sudden you recall something that you forgot because you couldn't face it, because it was too great before, too much pain. But now you can face the pain. So now you can face the emotion tied to it. And you can feel anger towards that person, and that's okay. Not for eternity, but for the moment. And you can catch yourself in the anger, in the thought, in the feeling, in the moment, catching the tiger by the tail, the part of you that is erratic and out of control, the part of you that is oppressed, the part of you that is shut down, the part of you that is angry. And you can show that part of yourself courage by walking in a way that you haven't before. And you can create a pathway then to love in that place, to love in that place. And you can find that the love was never gone, never missing, that you were never alone, you were never abandoned, that you were never a victim in this life. It doesn't come all at once. And when you walk in that way, you will never be alone again, because you will never abandon yourself. So I want to thank you for connecting into this video with me. Forgiveness is very difficult. because we have a lot of blind spots with forgiveness. But in the moment where we project outward, where we criticize and feel justified in hating or feeling anger or not forgiving another person, that shows us where we have not forgiven, and that does not make us wrong. But it makes us honest when we face it. And every time you face it, you deflate it more and more. You take the air out of the balloon until it's empty, until there's nothing left. All the screams have been screamed out. You bring a very strong capacitance, a capacity to carry a charge inside of yourself. And then when you meet that person in the world, the person you couldn't forgive, it may not even be the same person, but maybe it's the same archetype. You find that you don't hate them, that you understand why they're doing what they're doing, what they're getting out of it from a shadow perspective, how you may be doing facets of it yourself. And you can revel in the growth, not from an ego perspective, but from a growth perspective. It's real. You can revel in the fact that you now love where you hadn't. And that is immensely powerful. It is immensely powerful, not in a poetic way. Love, not in a poetic way, but in a potential, the capacity to love. It opens up every door. So, thank you for sharing this space with me. Thank you.